This is A Deeper Listen, the show we talk with musicians about the thoughts and experiences that shape their music. I'm Emily Fox. Today's show features La Luz. It's a band that formed in Seattle more than a decade ago. Their sound on their first record was retro, fused with indie rock. A few years after forming, the band moved to LA, and that city's surf sound penetrated their music. Change is a big theme on their new record, News of the Universe. The band's lineup has changed in recent years, with members now scattered across Northern California. Frontwoman Shana Cleveland is the only original member still in the band. And there are new sounds, too. While the band's latest album holds on to their indie rock ethos, it also features psychedelia. And Eastern melodies. This record also represents major shifts in Cleveland's personal life. The album was written after she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She got the diagnosis in 2022 after she had weaned her 2-year-old son off breastfeeding.
I feel like I often think about cancer and pregnancy and birth in the same way, because it was just like this, something growing inside of me, something strange that I couldn't control, and then having it leave suddenly.
The good news is Cleveland recently got a good bill of health from her doctor, but the fear of the initial diagnosis and experience can still be heard throughout News of the Universe.
Please forgive my long absence. I'm coming home to you.
I caught up with Cleveland to learn how her cancer shows up on this record. I first asked what her reaction was when she first got the diagnosis.
I felt like I had been sucked out of the world that I knew and just put in this horrible new reality. And I would just kind of wake up, at night and just be so upset that I couldn't go back to the way things were before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, so much of that diagnosis, and I think, the emotions that you're feeling around that time show up on this record. I mean, do you feel like, there's many, many songs that touch on this, but do you feel like there is a song on this record that really captures the feelings that were kind of going through your body and in your mind at the time around the diagnosis?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of them. I'd say about 2/3 of the record feels pretty directly related to my journey with that. And it's some songs are kind of coming from different stages of that journey, like I think I wrote these songs pretty soon after my recovery. And so I was in this place of feeling really excited and happy that I had, gotten to where I was and kind of gotten through all of that. But at the same time, I was still just felt so vulnerable. And so on a lot of the songs, I can just hear that kind of hesitation of like this feeling of like optimism, but also this real like vulnerability. And I just wanted to be as open as possible on this record because I was interested in that as an artist. I was just like, this is a wild time. And I wanted to dive in deep and explore it. The song Always in Love, I feel like is the most sort of like that song. When I hear that, it makes me cry every time because it feels so visceral. Like I feel like I'm just like blasting through the trauma by the end of that song. Like the guitar solo is just like my like dynamite exploding all of the anxiety and stress of that time.
And then I also understand Blue Jay was kind of written as a lullaby for your son and as you're like kind of like contemplating mortality.
Blue, blue jay, nothing is going my way.
Can you talk about the song Blue Jay?
I mean, that was to me the hardest part of the whole thing, was just my son being 2 years old and just thinking, like, is he gonna remember me if this is really bad? Is he even gonna remember me? And I felt like just so attached to him, and just so in love with him, and I wanted to write a sort of a lullaby about impermanence, but also about love in the face of that.
You're brand new, but I was made for you. A picture in time and dust on the island. Oh, must we leave so soon? Try to remember time's an illusion. I'll always be with you. I'll be with you.
There's a line in your song, News of the Universe, when you say, when I hold you, I feel my life now fully just begun.
Oh, when I hold you, I feel my life has now fully just begun.
I'm guessing that's also about your son?
Yeah, that line always gets me too, because I felt it so hard when I was writing it.
I think about, I feel like the way you think about life and love changes a lot when you become a mom. But I'm also curious, one, if that happened to you, just like your concepts around life and love changed becoming a mom, but also if it shifted again when you got that initial cancer diagnosis.
Yeah, it did. And it really, it was the same. It felt like the same thing. It was so weird. I feel like I often think about cancer and pregnancy and birth in the same way, because it was just like this, something growing inside of me, something strange that I couldn't control. And then having it leave suddenly. And I sort of had the same takeaway from both experiences, which in the end was just a huge expansion of empathy and love for the people around me, for the universe, and just for the experience of being alive.
And, also in News of the Universe, it's also kind of about impermanence, and was inspired by, something the sci-fi author Octavia Butler said, which is, the only lasting truth is change.
Change is the only lie.
Tell me more about this track and how Octavia Butler shows up in it.
Yeah, I think that, that line really resonated with me throughout pregnancy, throughout cancer. And it was, both of those experiences, it was just all about sort of letting go of expectations. There's something I read in a book about Buddhism that just says abandon hope. And that can sound really sort of pessimistic, but in the end, it's sort of a way of being free, I think, and leaving yourself open to the reality that change is going to happen, that you can't hold on to anything. And for me, I look to nature a lot to kind of learn that lesson all the time, and just to the changing seasons, to the impermanence of everything around me in nature. And there's something comforting about that. I think that just sort of constantly being reminded of death is such a great way to be free if you're open to that. And so, yeah, I wanted to kind of shout out Octavia Butler, because I think that that's such a powerful lesson to realize that change is coming and to embrace that.
News of the universe states it clearly. Change is the only lie. Don't be afraid, Octavia told us. Change is the only lie.
Your connection with nature comes up in some of these tracks too. Isn't the song Strange World was advice you got from a friend? You were dealing with kind of anxiety, even panic attacks, and they suggested just go out in nature.
Waking up in a strange world. Mr. Clean in a strange world.
Tell me more about, what inspired Strange World.
Yeah, it was during, gosh, I'm trying to remember now. It was after my surgery, actually. I just had to go, obviously under anesthesia to to have this surgery. And when I woke up from the anesthesia, I just woke up like in a crazy panic, which is not what you want. And I kept having flashbacks for, I don't know how long it was. Maybe it was only a couple weeks, but it was just over and over again. I would sort of start to doze off because I was recovering. I was always tired, and then I would just jolt awake and sort of have this flashback to the anesthesia wearing off, and I was just like, I don't know what to do with this panic. It just felt so out of my control. I was kind of trying all my old tricks, and a friend of mine who is actually a cancer nurse told me, you should just go outside and take your shoes off and put your feet on the ground. And I thought, okay, I'll try anything, and I think that it was really helpful. And that, Strange World is, I think in some ways it's one of the songs that's not directly sort of related to cancer and that experience, but the chorus of just, we'll be fine, just take your time. It's sort of a mantra of just slow down, put your feet on the earth, and everything's going to be okay. It's so simplistic, but sometimes that's the kind of thing you need to hear.
Yeah, I like that advice. I mean, so like the panic attacks that you were experiencing, was that directly related to that feeling you had coming out of anesthesia, or are those things that you've been dealing with for your whole life or for a long time?
Yeah, it felt exactly like waking up from the anesthesia. I have had panic attacks in the past, but it's been like, maybe like once every few months or something, or maybe once a year. So this was like, this just felt like sort of anesthesia flashbacks, I guess.
Interesting. Yeah. And so that was kind of like a triggering thing where you may be getting them more often because of that memory.
It felt like it. I mean, I asked a lot of people about it, and nobody could really explain to me what was going on, but that's just kind of the feeling that I had, because it felt just like that sort of, I would just sort of be like on the couch, and then all of a sudden I would just be like, just sort of gasping for air. And just for that to happen over and over again, I was just kind of, just like looking for advice anywhere I could get it.
Yeah, no kidding. I also meant to ask you about the song Poppies. Can you tell me more about, what Poppies is about and the inspiration behind that track?
Yeah, Poppies is... So right around the time I was coming out of the other side of this whole cancer situation, I was the time when the first poppies started to come out of the yard. And that, to me, it's such a glorious moment because they're just everywhere, and they're bright yellow, and they open with the sun, and they're so pretty. And you don't know where they are until they just show up one day. So they just feel like this magical organism that is a reflection of the sun. And to see them come out at the same time that I was kind of coming through this, I just thought, well, that seems worth writing a song about. And so, Poppies, it's just kind of about this feeling of coming through this traumatic thing and feeling like I don't want to go back to the person that I was before. And also just like, I don't know, I think I hear a lot of vulnerability on that track, but there's also this sort of like thick chorus where I'm singing with other people that I love, and that is, it's such a triumphant moment to me to be coming through this vulnerable situation, and then to be supported and surrounded by love.
Woke up with a memory, a soundtrack for a tender scene. I didn't wanna leave it in a dream. We were as we were before, some unseen piano.
landscape also comes up in your song Dandelions. You live in California now. You live in a smaller town, kind of an hour or so, like northeast of Sacramento. And California's landscape shows up in this song, you know, this idea of green hills soon turning into just like that dry, golden looking, crispy grass everywhere.
The meadow's green in June, soon to go, all rough and gold, as summer blazes through.
And La Luz formed in Seattle, but you moved to LA a few years ago and again now live in this rural town outside of Sacramento. I'm curious, what brought you to the town you currently live in?
Well, me and my partner, Will, who is also a musician, plays in Shana and the Clams.
We just interviewed them. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah, so we were living in LA and really loved it, actually. But we wanted to buy a house and it was just impossible there. And we were looking at like dilapidated shacks that were about to fall off cliffs and like we couldn't even afford those. And so we just started looking around and we just thought maybe we don't need to live in a city anymore because we're both touring musicians and it just sounded kind of nice to come home to a place that wasn't a city since we were traveling from city to city all the time. And Will's grandpa used to live here in Grass Valley, where we live. And so he grew up coming out here and he just said, oh, we should see what it's like out there. And at the time it was pretty cheap, comparatively cheap, California cheap,
Right.
in Grass Valley. And so we were like, whoa, we can actually kind of have some land and it just started seeming really appealing to just have like our own kind of secret spot.
That's awesome. And how long have you been there now?
About 6 or 7 years.
Also, La Luz started in Seattle. Can you talk about that decision to leave Seattle for LA initially?
Yeah, I feel like I got so much from Seattle. I'm so grateful for my time there. I really didn't intend to stay there for more than a year or two, and I stayed there for over 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So I just I don't know. I felt like it was such a great place to be an artist, and there's so much support between KEXP and Sub Pop and Hardly Art, and even like K Records. My first band was on K, and there's so many labels. Anyway, long story short, and the DIY scene was what really nurtured me, and sort of. I came up in the house show scene in Seattle, just like if you need something, you just ask a friend and, there's so much collaboration and community. And so anyway, long story short, again, I guess I loved Seattle so much, but I never really meant to stay there for that long. And I just really love sunshine. And La Luz was recording our second album, Weirdo Shrine, in Los Angeles with Ty Segall. And we were there in February and we were just like, it's really great to be here in the sun.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at pictures of friends on Instagram, in Seattle, standing at bus stops in the rain. And I was just like, I think that's it for me. I think, this is a sign that it's time to leave. So yeah, it was really just, the weather was kind of the major factor for me.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Out on the ocean, our time is short smooth. You disappear always, it doesn't bother me. Electric, green light in blackness ahead. No one can tell what direction you go. Your eyes don't show.
The final question I have is, KEXP is all about music discovery. And so we are looking for a music recommendation from you. What is a song that you think everyone should hear? A song that you are loving right now, or a song that has made an impact somewhere in your life that has just stuck with you?
I've really been loving this album by Telenovela lately. This album, it's called Poet's Tooth, and it came out on Kill Rock Stars maybe last year or something. We're actually gonna take them on tour for this record as our tour support. And I've been listening to this record all the time. I just feel like it's one of these records that, like, when I was like in junior high, I was listening to Dookie by Green Day every day. And I feel like it like kind of takes me back to that time, like this record where like every song is super catchy and you're just like, oh yes, this song. So yeah, I would say Poet's Tooth by Telenovela, and I really like pretty much all the songs on the record, but maybe Hard Hearted Way.
At least I no longer fear the mirror. I might stand in unbecoming light, and it's alright. Fitful wings will cut the air into packs of magic cards. Disappear my heavy heart. I came out in one piece.
I've been speaking with Shana Cleveland of La Luz. Their new album, News of the Universe, is out now. They'll be playing at KEXP and at the Crocodile in Seattle on Thursday, May 30th. Shana, thank you so much for your time and congrats on the record.
Thanks, Emily.
Next time on A Deeper Listen, we'll hear about a new album from Portland's Fabi Reina of Reina Tropical. Her new album explores the Latin diaspora.
For me, the diaspora and sort of allowing myself to bring in all of my worlds has allowed me to feel comfortable and safe and confident in expressing myself through this music that you hear in Malegria and through this story.
That's next time on A Deeper Listen. Before we go, please subscribe to this podcast, rate it, and review it. Those little things just take a minute or two of your time and go a long way in helping spread the word that this podcast exists, is out there, and is worthy of other people's time. Also, share an episode with a friend. That goes a long way as well. Because KEXP is a publicly funded radio station, we rely on listener support to do what we do. You can do those things for free, or you can help financially support the show with a $6 monthly donation. You can do that at KEXP.org/deeper. And thanks for taking a deeper listen.